and it is 12 o'clock, so I know we have a very active discussion today, so I'm going to go ahead and get started and introduce first myself. My name's Jennifer Pleiner. I am Breakthrough T1D's Northern California outreach person. This event is open to everyone, which is the beauty of virtual, so thank you for joining. I am so thrilled to have quite a few people actually here that is going to be leading a discussion on T1D to 100. I'm going to use Joanne's great terminology here. I have Jeannie HIckey, who you guys are all familiar with as our resident certified diabetes educator. Jessica Ching may be joining in to talk a little bit about menopause. And we have Joanne Milo, who is going to be leading us in this discussion. Joanne was diagnosed in 1965 and has been living with type 1 for over 60 years. She is the author of The Savvy Diabetic, publishes a weekly blog, thesavvydiabetic.com, is a member of the We Are Not Waiting community for the do-it-yourself open source insulin delivery system, and founder of the Loop and Learn group on Facebook with over 13,000 members worldwide. I am actually one of those. If that wasn't enough, she is also leading a new initiative, the T1D to 100 initiative, which is a new space created by and for people with type 1 who are navigating the realities of aging, seeking support, sharing insights, using tools to feel more prepared, and living well. And I'm going to just read a little bit about it because I just think it resonated. So T1D to 100 group is, we are here to provide trusted information from practical tips and tools, long-term planning solutions, insights for emotional wellness and coping, to real life stories that lift you up and help you navigate the uncertain path of aging. We also raise our voices to help researchers and healthcare professionals better understand what we need for improved care and quality of life. People with type 1 diabetes were once told they might not make it past 40, but here we are living into our 70s, 80s, 90s, and beyond. It's a gift and it's uncharted territory. T1D to 100, living longer, aging smarter together. So it's just really wonderful words. So I'm so thrilled to be bringing this community together for such an important subject. And I'll turn it over to Joanne to start our discussion.
Hey, everybody. Thank you very much, Jen, for doing this, and Jeannie for roping me in on this. And everything Jen just said is correct. And yeah, I'm closing in on 61 years. There are people on here that have had it longer. And those of us who were diagnosed in the 60s and 70s were told we wouldn't live past 40. Here we are, and which is wonderful. And Bill Polanski said, well, what's the problem? The problem is that not only are we aging like normal people age and have those issues, but we're living with diabetes with the complications and the difficulties getting the care we're going to need as we age and then as we lose capabilities. And so there's no system in place. No one's really looked at it because no one saw us coming. We're coming on very strong. We're a large, fast-growing demographic. There are more adults than children living with T1D. And I spoke at CDCES recently and explained all of us, all humans are on a journey. You're born, you live your life, you go to school, you get a job, you have your family. And then as you wind down, your body ages, and we understand the end game of all of this is we're gone. So born, live, end, everybody. But if you live with T1D, some of that can be accelerated. Some of your ability to have cognition gets accelerated. There are complications, particularly if you were diagnosed 50 or more years ago, we had less tools. So we're coming into it with a lot more blood sugar damage. And here we are. So I started to get concerned. I just, who's going to be there for me? Who's going to take care of me? How am I going to navigate this? Sometimes I'm now 71. Sometimes I don't pay attention to a step when I'm changing a pod and go, uh-oh, am I getting cognitive decline? It's a constant fear of monitoring and making sure I'm okay. And it's not an obsession. It's just and awareness of how do you be prepared for this. There's a quote, and my husband reminded me of this, and it has been attributed to the Marines, but it is actually also attributed to an ancient Greek poet, Archilochus, that it says, under pressure, you don't rise to the occasion, you sink to the level of your training. And I want you to reflect on that. How much do we know? How much are we planning for what we are aware can and most probably will happen? How about those around us who will be the ones taking care of us? How well are they prepared even for the emergency? And working against that is the fact that, again, long-term people, we're taught the word control, and we spend our lives working on control, which means we control ourselves and we don't share it. We don't have other people that much aware. A lot of people don't even include their spouses or their kids who don't know how to take care of them with a low blood sugar, a very basic thing. So it's how do you prepare yourself for as you age and need more help, basically. And I started looking around and trying to see what we need. And I pulled together a group in my living room, actually around the dining room table. And we started to make lists of what are we scared about? What can happen? And then that doesn't help us unless we start to say, how do we solve it? What are the possible solutions if we're going to advocate for ourselves? And one of our members who joined the group when he was 60, had never met another T1D before, came up with our name, T1D to 100, not as a goal, because not everyone has a goal to live to be 100, but it's a sense of, if you have the longevity, can you live well? And how do you do that? And a lot of that is preparation. I know a lot of people don't like to prepare. I do. I'm also married to an engineer who likes to prepare. So it's helpful. I learn more when I do that. So we started discussing what the topics are, and we got it down to about 5 or 6 major issues, and said, well, what do we do? And we thought cheat sheets, get involved with the community, get involved with researchers, talk to our endos. What I started to find out, and I have a prominent endo that I use, and I think highly of him, when I said I was struggling one day, just emotionally struggling, and he said, no, not you. Yeah, it happens. And he didn't know what to say. And I think if you're dealing with an older population, you're going to hear that a lot. You're going to hear their fears. I certainly hear it. And so we decided we need to get information out. Just knowledge helps. And we have quite a diverse group of people that have helped create this website. We just launched it a little over 2 weeks ago. It's called T1D100.com. We are on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and I've been heavily connected to the research community. And interestingly, they're beginning to get a lot of grant money. It's beginning to be a topic that they actually are paying attention to. And we're kind of their go-to right now. So they're interested in engaging with us, which is wonderful. And our kickoff Zoom will be in the next month and a half with Dr. Meta Munchie from Harvard Joslin, who's been researching long-term T1D. She's a gerontologist, endocrinologist. She's been doing this for 20 years. And it's finally coming to a point where we actually are learning things and maybe we'll be able to implement some help. So my goal here is reach out to the community and say, here's some tools, put them in your toolbox, have them pay attention to it. Just don't obsess, but have attention paid. Here's the research community. They want to talk to us. They want to share with us. Great. We want to share with them. Talk to us. And then how do we push it back into the medical community and say, here's how to take care of us. Here are the things we need. There's also advocacy, because a lot of this goes to how we get our care, how it's licensed, how it's paid for. And that is a major issue that most of us don't know about in terms of where you can live, who will take care of you, who will change your pump, who will do any of that information that you need. So we put up the site, and we kind of divided it into topics. So I'll just go through that real quickly and then open it up to any questions you have. The big thing is being prepared. So we ask questions, are you prepared? Real basic. And you can be prepared in advance of an unexpected event. And I'm sure many of you have had unexpected events. You go for a walk, you trip, you fall, you break an elbow. Anything can happen. You need help. Are you prepared ahead of time? Does someone know where your go bag is? Does anyone know what a go bag is? If you've been on Jack's Zoom, if you have been on other people's events, you've heard the words go bag. I can't overemphasize that enough. You get a backpack, fill it with, and there we have cheat sheets on what goes into a go bag, and you can customize it for what you would take to a hospital or an emergency situation, and have it by the door. If you got to grab and go. A friend of mine was up in LA and they had a gas leak in the neighborhood and they were evacuated in a minute. And he texted me and said, I left my go bag in my office. Okay, not in your office, by the front door where you're going to go out. So this is simple. Doing the go bag is not simple. It's a task. It may take you an hour out of your life, but it covers you for emergencies. Jack will tell you about that over and over again. We've talked about this extremely. I'm going to pray that all of you on this call either have one or will make a go bag sometime by the end of October. Is that a good goal? Just make the commitment to yourself and say, I will do a go bag. There's also a picture of people's go bags on the website, so you can see it's anything. I don't care what it looks like, but have one. Your personal medical resume, everything that you need to know that if you will show up in an ER, maybe in one place or one flash drive or on your phone. Does your phone have a way to have your emergency contacts accessible? We show you how to do that on your phones, Android or iPhones. And then we have cheat sheets for if you're in the hospital. What do you need to bring? How do you manage doctors? How do you manage steroids? That just came up on the Facebook group, and I was able to send the link for how to manage with steroids, which is a thing that as we get older, most likely you will deal with. A shot of cortisone will feel really good if you're hurting, but it'll also affect your blood sugars. And there are ways to manage this so you don't run high for days and days and days. So let's move to the next topic, which is where are you going to live? Can you stay in your home? Who's going to take care of you in your home? What if you want to go to a retirement community? Do they have special meals? Do they pay attention to your needs? What happens if you have low blood sugar? Lots of assisted living places will not treat you at nighttime for a low blood sugar. They will call 911, which is not what's always needed. So there's got to be some advocacy in terms of changing how that care is provided in any kind of living arrangement. And it would be really nice if you were aware of what is in your community, where you will be. We just posted something about co-living, where people are getting co-op communities or little, tiny houses in a community. Should these be things that you consider as you age, because you're going to age, and with all the good technology, you probably owed for a while, but you need to kind of plan this. Then we get to physical changes, lots of physical changes that are particular or more common in T1D. And how do you manage them? How do you identify them? What are the options? We have a whole section on that. Advocacy is growing, and we've got a couple of people that have reached out to me who are interested in getting involved in advocacy. And we can also align with DPAC, which does a tremendous amount of advocacy work. And then finally, this is the one that's really near and dear to my heart, is coping and resilience. all of the stuff I just talked about is really stressful. Nobody wants to talk about it. They hope it doesn't happen. It does. Every day you change the calendar, you're going forward. How are you going to cope with it? How are you going to cope with the losses? Like, I can't drive anymore, or my spouse suddenly has a stroke and dies. And that we have a story featuring someone who we were just being friends, and all of a sudden her husband died. And I've followed her journey because it's the same journey that we're aware could happen to us. And how do you keep bouncing back? And so we're finally making inroads into the community for behavioral psychology, so that we actually give some really good ways of coping. And the other part is community, staying connected. We're just about to post an article on the super agers. The one thing that's common with people that live long and live well is they are connected to community. It's so important. Even if you're an introvert, I'm an introvert, believe it or not, and it's still important to connect to community. And that's what gives you the stability in your life and the longer life. It does something for you. Keep moving, stay connected. So we are publishing a list on how to start your own support group. It's a cheat sheet. You can go out on the checklist and say, I can do this. I'm going to gather 2 or 3 friends, get your own group. That way you have control of it. You can manage it. We have tips from people who run wonderful Zoom groups on how to manage a group, how to moderate conversations so you don't get into a complaining session, which doesn't really uplift people. But we're just trying to see, how do you do this? And how do we do this together? Because we can't do this alone. And that's what this whole effort's all about. So that's the overview, and I am open for questions. Uh-oh.
Thank
I
you,
know
Joanne.
you guys are talking.
I think that's a great overview that you just came up with. And I think that you outlined a lot of things that people, as they start to age and mature more, have to think about. And my wife and I have thought about this a great deal. No, I do not have a go bag. And matter of fact, I don't want to use a go bag. So that's why I don't have one, I guess. So it's an attitude issue. But I think attitude is really important as you mature, and how you really see yourself. And you also have to be very realistic and honest about yourself. So I think you started a great conversation. For those who are getting older, I'm not there yet. I've got a long ways to go. But I need to ask you a question. How old are you?
I'm 71. This year I was 71.
Pardon me?
I'm 71.
71. Okay. So I basically have you by 20 years. And so we are in a rare air kind of a situation.
How many
And,
years have you had,
but feel,
how many years have you had type 1?
I've been in type 1 22 years.
Okay. All right.
I was a latecomer.
Uh-huh.
I had another family member who preceded me. And then I just thought, I guess I better catch up. But these are things that you don't anticipate when you take it on later on in life. Then you certainly are at a place of saying, okay, how do I start making major adjustments when I had X number of years, 60 some odd years, without having to think about type 1, and then you become a juvenile diabetic. And it sort of crosses over and causes you to really do some very serious thinking just about life itself as well as health.
They're
So,
sobering. These are sobering conversations, and you can ask yourself, I can not do this and get caught by surprise, or I can pay a little bit of time to just figure out what I want. I know several people on this call who have had accidents, they've fallen, and suddenly they're they don't have, no one's, pardon? If you're not prepared, and it can happen at any age. I mean, there's someone on the call who is much younger, and I said, what happens if you have a bike accident and break both your wrists? Who's gonna do your pump changes? Have you thought about that? Have you thought about, not obsess, this is not an obsessional thing, this is a kind of prepare yourself, because without that, your health gets riskier. So wouldn't you prefer just to take the moment or two and say, what is that? And what do I want to have happened if something goes wrong? And we live in a lot of denial. I mean, every day you drive a car and you go, I'll be fine. And we live to some degree in denial, but we can be a lot smarter than that with diabetes. We have the ability, we have the community that will help you do that. And then you can park it. Then you've got it. You kind of know what's there. And then when the next thing comes up in your life, you go, oh, let me go back to the resources and see what I need to know from there. We sometimes liken this living process and aging process as being in really rough waves and water, and there's lumber in the water. So you're barely getting your footing on the water, and then you get hit with a log. And okay, you better clear the water, get back on your feet, stabilize yourself. But the waves keep coming, and as we get older, they just will keep coming. So this is a reality. It's not a poor me, it's just a reality. And it would be a lot easier if you go, yeah, I remember if I have to stand up, spread my feet wider so I can get my base underneath me. It's just a little bit of prep work.
Joanne, one thing to add to that is that this life of T1D is constant learning. You know, I mean, it's old, and as long as we've all had this, every day we probably learn something new. And I know when you got and reached out to a bunch of us to think about this, all of a sudden questions came up to me that I just either didn't address or I didn't think about, or I said, well, yeah, I know how to do that. And boy, I mean, it is worth looking at. And I think that's even more powerful in what you said about this, is just stepping back and taking a look. Am I ready? Or, you know, what can happen beyond the T1D? Because I got to have everything else together to be able to handle the T1D. And that's kind of what we forget about. We get so focused on the T1D and we forget about all that other part of our life that you got to master so that you can take care of your T1D and continue on. And so it's for me has been an eye opener in seeing this and watching and maybe helping a little with this.
It was interesting in our early meetings, someone in the group said, I'm worried about physical geography. And I said, I don't know what you're talking about. Where am I going to put my pods or my infusion set? Where my skin is tired. I've been doing this for 60 years, or I've lost weight, or my skin is thinner, or I've lost fat layers. How am I going to do this? And out of that, Jack and Ellen put together an amazing document on things we can do to protect our skin with all the devices. Fran Kaufman, who is the chief medical officer of Senseonics Eversense, and I were talking, and she said, this is one of the few diseases where you have an open portal into your body for the devices you use. You have an open hole in your body with your infusion set or your injectable. And that's rare, and it requires awareness of the skin that it's attached to. And that from that grew this amazing document. It's up on the website for things that if you find you get rashes or it's getting harder to peel off your infusion set and your skin is thinner, what are some of the things you can do? And a lot of us are implementing what we've read in there. and it's been tremendously helpful. I use Tegaderm underneath my pod, and I have no skin irritation anymore. It used to kind of rip my skin every time. So all of this is the community contributed knowledge base of things that work. And if you won't live long enough to discover them all for yourself, so take advantage of the community to help lift you up and get you through to the next phase.
So
Yeah,
Joanne,
I wanted to, oh, go
Go
ahead,
ahead.
Maddie.
I'm
Okay,
delighted to meet you on screen. And my mom breaking her ankle, she's 91, and she broke her ankle 6 months ago. And, she had her whole estate plan. She has me and my brother. She had things sort of generally in order when she and my dad divorced, and she's been aging alone. But one thing that I think about a lot is aging alone. So when you say the cohabitating communities, I'm just beginning to learn ChatGPT and AI platforms. But, and one night when I wasn't sleeping, I put in, so what does an aging diabetic living alone, what does New York State provide for them? And, it was kind of fascinating to see what came up. So what I learned, my mom now has 24/7 home care. We divested her of all her assets. She's on Medicaid. May that stay in place. But it's interesting. It's been a quite a journey. But she's modeling it for me. So when the time comes, and I just pray that I'm going to have my mental faculties to manage it. But when the time comes, my plan really is to get age in place. And when my next move is, when my mom dies, I'm going to plan my next move and really map this out. And my next move is my end move. And I'm going to stay in New York State because I like the infrastructure here. But I've been doing a lot of research about it. My brother will go wherever he'll go near his grandkids. I have friends, but in an emergency, who knows? I have a go bag that's kind of spread out in a drawer. So I have to grab it. And, there's some arranging I have to do with that. But, I think I've been thinking about it a lot. And I like the idea of the cohabitating model. And I will be seeking that. I don't know if it's going to be a continuum of care place. I don't know what that's going to be. Every time I visit my mom, I think, wow, I'm too young for this place. But no, no, if I'm going to get ahead of it, I'm really not too young for it.
There seem to be, it's now also called co-communing. And I just did a search on it the other day, and we're including an article on the website. Different communities have, and different leadership on the communities. Maddie, I did hear you were looking at getting a place where people can advocate. I want to put my application in. I'm a former New Yorker, take me in. Do you want to be with people that you resonate with? Do you want a community that feels comfortable to you? Do you want to move? Do you want to stay in your home? I would rather make those plans than have them made for me when I can't. I just would like to feel the most comfortable I can till I can't do anything anymore. So I think that's just, we want to live well, we want to live happy.
I wondered how many people on this call have have moved to some kind of a senior facility or someplace that they've decided, okay, I needed to move here and this will be where I am the rest of my life, and how they made that decision, what choices they were making as they were deciding.
Well, I can say there's right now, there's one interview we did with a lady, she may or may not be on this call, whose husband died suddenly of a stroke. We were in the middle of talking, and then all of a sudden she said, can't talk, husband had stroke, then he died. Then she moved, and I said, you are the prime example of what we want to understand. How did you do this? How is it? What are the pros and cons? What should people know? And so we're trying to interview people who have gone through exactly your question. Who's done this? How has it been? What would you tell someone if they're doing this again? we have cheat sheets on how to interview places. So if you think you're going to stay in your town, find out the possible range of prices and amenities that you might be interested in, and go with your checklist and ask to talk to the manager, ask to talk to some residents. If you can find out if there's anyone with T1D in the community, how are they being managed? Are they getting their needs met? So it's just doing some homework, doing some legwork, grab a friend and go visit these places, so that you at least know.
Joanne, how?
Yeah, I wanted to, sorry, I wanted to just thank you for creating this community. Just to say hello to everyone here. I'm Jamie. I've had type 1 since I was 3 years old. I'm 45 now, and my aunt was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes 5 years before I was as an adult. She passed away earlier this year, but I was able to watch her go through her experiences as she aged with diabetes. She had a number of complications. She ended up handing over her management to my cousin. My cousin moved in with her. My cousin didn't work, stopped working, took 100% care of my aunt in the last few years of her life. I watched her die and make decisions about her death earlier this year. At the same time, my father is having early cognitive decline. He doesn't have type 1 diabetes. Additionally, my son was diagnosed last year. So there's a lot of type 1 going on in the family and a lot of thinking about aging. And it's just so important, this group that you've created and all of these issues that we're coming up against, because I was sort of talking about this at dinner the other day, and my son said, well, Mom, I mean, obviously I'll take care of you. Oh, and what an amazing moment, and also a tearful moment. And Joanne, you and I are meeting tomorrow to talk about how T1D Exchange can maybe help do some research in this area. And I made a career change last year to work at T1D Exchange when my son was diagnosed. I'm an epidemiologist, so I'm really interested in contributing to research in this area. And I just wanted to share that with the group. But such important questions and many open questions for us with uncharted territory here. So super excited to be a part of it. Yeah.
Thanks, Jamie. That just a quick mention. I've been fortunate enough to build a very strong advisory panel for T1D to 100. So it's Dr. Munchie from Harvard Joslin. I have 2 or 3 significant researchers who seem to be grant machines. They're getting grants, and they're talking to me saying, who can we ask this question? They've been doing this for about 3 or 4 years, so I've been polling the community for them. We have Dave Walton from T1D Exchange is on the advisory panels, Steve Edelman, David Winkler of Diabetes Research Connection. We're making our connections into that community because we want them to talk to us. We want them to hear what our concerns are, and then they can decide how to go forward, and what will solve some of those problems. Let's see who just made the comment before. In the span of life, we are children where we need a lot of help. Then we become adults and we supposedly don't need help. And then as we age, we basically become children again, and we do need help. So you can kind of look at it as this curve, and where are you here, and what kind of care do you want? A happy, nice mommy who takes care of you and things are taken care of, or do you want to end up crying a lot? It's how do you plan? And there's one more thing. This is probably not the easiest topic, but end of life as well. There's a lot of discussion recently on whether in hospice care, whether you withhold insulin. I will just make a real quick plea for, please don't let anybody do that to you. Make sure you have documentation that says insulin will not be withheld. That will expedite end of life, but it will not be the way you want to do that. So there's a document on how to manage end of life in different locations. It's not something you need to talk about right now, but put it into your planning, because you don't want to be put in a position that you don't want to be in. That's all we're trying to do, is make it as pleasant as possible, because we deserve the end of life to be happiness as much as possible.
Joanne, I'm really glad that you mentioned this. It's something that people don't want to approach, but I lost my dad in 22, my mom in 23. They were both hospice at the end. And it's really interesting because they both asked for no food and no water, so no artificial care. So we had to even have them turn the oxygen machine off, because when you're at end of life, you tend to have shallow breaths, and they'll put you on oxygen machine. And I said, this is support and it's not supposed to be. Just like she's uncomfortable and it's just, but anyway, what I learned was that your body can go without food for a long time, like up to 60 days or something crazy like that. But I think the world record for not living without water is only around 21 or 22 days. Interestingly, my dad at age 87 lasted 19 days with no water. But what happens is basically your kidneys shut down and you actually die from kidney shutdown. And I mean, for two people, my parents who both didn't want to prolong their life, to have to lie in that bed for 19 days until their kidneys shut down, to me was not what they foresaw, and we didn't know this. So I just want to bring up this option of a more proactive ending. Um, because I think a lot of people think when you stop food and water, you'll just die right away, and you won't.
Do not. The body has an amazing ability to want to stay alive.
Yeah.
And
It's interesting. Your body even has, so no food, of course, from both my parents, but they both had bowel movements because your body utilizes your fat and even your muscles. It saves your organs for last as fuel to keep you alive. So therefore, your body is actually metabolizing nutrients to try and keep yourself alive. So, the things that you think this will be clean and easy because you're not eating or drinking, and it actually is not at all. It's
I'm
that's
gonna
not the truth
I'm
at
gonna
all.
jump in. I'm gonna jump in on, because take a breath. I helped my brother in hospice decide and end his life. It was not an easy decision, but the pain that we didn't want him to experience was a discussion that was had, and he was talked to about it for several weeks and months before. My cousin is an ER physician, and his wife is a pain specialist. So it helped having people there. And I think what Jessica's point is really strong is that you need to talk to people that know something about the process, to make it, and I'm going to use the word comfortable, but to make it a comfortable process in the end, you need to talk to people. Don't assume things that you think you know, because when you go on hospice, you have all the tools to do it in a very short time, and they give them to you, but they don't tell you that. And that's one thing that it's that seeing the end and watching the end happen is not a fun thing to do. But if you can see someone kind of do it with friends around, with people around, and understanding what's going on, it is so much more peaceful. I mean, we had done everything from the pickup at the end to everything the days before, and cleaning the house and doing the whole thing and the whole process. But if I hadn't had those medical people around that had that background, I don't think I would have understood it as clearly as I did about the whole process.
yeah, I don't want us to focus on end
Yeah,
of
but
life so
my
much
point is
as
reach out, and this goes along with what
right.
Joanne is saying, is you got to reach out. Don't assume, don't think that you know or that you understand it all, because until you go through it's a discovery and it's a learning process. And reach out, reach out to those that have been through it or someone that knows.
And hospice
Can
is
I-
really helpful.
Oh,
I
yeah.
see
Can I
Gabriella
jump-
has her hand up. So we'll go to Gabriella and then Kathleen, and then I think someone else was just talking too. So whoever was after, we'll go after Kathleen. Go ahead, Gabriella.
Thank you. Different points in looking at a place. The San Francisco Village had a lot of discussions, and this one woman was saying that she picked the wrong place. There's a lot of services, and we said, what question should you have asked? What question could you have asked? And she said, if you're thinking of evaluating a place, go to the dining room, see what people are talking about, see what the community is and see if it resonates. So the community that she was in, everybody was nice, lovely. It wasn't a community that felt supportive to her. So that was one. And the other that I didn't know, and Joanne mentioned, was I was thinking that in my care, I would say, stop everything, give me morphine so that I will be comfortable, and stop insulin. And then what I heard on, maybe it was on Jack's group, that stopping insulin is like the most horrible way to die in the world. And so what I did is I said, I didn't know that I needed to know this. It came out, I think, out of the blue. So in my final directives, no food, no water, morphine, continue to give me insulin. I don't know how much insulin, that's something I don't know, but continue. So if any of us are doing that, what seemed logical, stop everything, would have been the worst decision that I would have made for myself.
Thanks, Gabriella. Let me shift this a little bit. There's also a topic, and hopefully I can get a Zoom set up to discuss the changes in the way we handle hypoglycemia and hyperglycemia as we age. It changes, is a whole different way, particularly if there are issues of gastric emptying and slow digestion, and what works and what doesn't work. It does change as you age. Your liver changes as you age. So I'm hoping we can put together a Zoom event to just explain what happens, why, and things that we can do about that, because you don't want to get caught with a hypoglycemia that you can't treat. And it happens. So again, tips and tricks and things we didn't deal with when we were in 20, we may be dealing with. And so let's just know what they are and let's know how to fix those.
One of the great resources on the site, Joanne, I think, is the resources to learn what questions you need to ask. And it's so easy to forget when you walk into a doctor's office or you talk with a doctor or you talk with an educator about what questions to ask. And there's a whole bunch of resources up there about what kind of questions to ask in certain situations. And so go up there and because you don't remember everything. And it's so nice to be able to have this list and just say, I need to ask this, this, and this, and this before I go into surgery, or I need to ask this, this, and this before I go to the hospital, or I need to ask this, this, and this before I talk to somebody. And it really helped a lot. And it was insightful to see those and read those for me too.
There's an item I have put on the go bag list, which is a pad and pen. Because if you're in a hospital and they come in talking to you, it'd be nice to have something to write it down with. So, or if you have questions when the doctor zooms in and zooms out, you better have your note ready. If you're going to be sleeping, give it to the charge nurse. So say, this question has to be answered. Piece of paper helps. It's such a basic thing, but we don't always think that way.
And we'll move to Kathleen's question in the chat, and then Ray, I saw you had your hand raised. I think someone else did too. So Kathleen is talking about she's been calling around trying to find care that would supply celiac vegetarian diet and would cover type 1. And apparently the only thing she could find was a RN care at home. And does your group have any suggestions about this issue?
No, and no, but that's a big issue. And that was one of the things I brought up at CDCES about technology and aging. There's a whole supply of people who know T1D and management. And these are parents who had little children who were T1D, and then they grew up and went to college and didn't need their parents anymore. But the parents still have this extreme knowledge to the point where they can fix problems in their sleep at 3 a.m. So they have this inherent knowledge, particularly those in the open source community who have been so involved in understanding their child's diabetes. And it's the same as we're going to need as we age. So there may be a whole database of people who have been put out to pasture because their kids are in college they have the knowledge. Well, how are we not able to tap into that resource through the educators? Say, we have this phone bank of people that can at least, forward your call. So I put that task out to CDCES saying, use these people. We don't have enough caregivers. We don't have enough medical doctors, but we have all these parents that are no longer needed by their kids who are now young adults. So how do we access their expertise, which is pretty extreme? They can handle a kid in their sleep. So, how do we use that? And do we have to push CDCES or other communities, nursing schools, saying, tap into this community, give them some access to help?
So interesting you say that, Joanne, because I work a lot with parents in the California school system that are struggling with the on-site care at the California school system. And in the state of California, I don't know how this plays out in other states, but there does not need to be an on-site nurse. The reason being is that one nurse, they just were unable to staff enough nurses to manage all the kids at all the schools with all the issues, not just type 1. And so with type 1, there just has to be somebody. And the thought process behind that was, hey, look, if a parent can learn how to take care of their child, anyone can technically get on board. So, using parents to take care is almost a pay it forward, right? Like a way.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, a parent can go and help somebody and assist them or their family to put an infusion set in. You don't have to put someone. You don't have to be licensed to do that.
Yeah.
You have to have the expertise to explain it.
Yeah.
And there are many of them out there.
Yeah.
Joanne, I have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Going to the hospital prefers to give you their medicine and their insulins and stuff. And I'm really freaky about that. And I don't know about the rest of you, that if you've had that experience. So if I'm going in for, let's say, a knee surgery, which I've had, I talk to the doctor in advance to get permission that the hospital allows me to use my own insulins and my own meds. And that has been really helpful. And so otherwise, they're going to push their stuff on you, and it may not be as consistent with what you've been doing. Do you
Absolutely.
have any thoughts along that line?
Of course.
Okay.
I've got 6 spinal surgeries and a whole bunch of other hospitalizations, and that's why I wrote my first story. Was like, it's dangerous here. It's a dangerous place to be because they take over. In my go bag, I have 2 weeks of my own medications in there, my pill case, my own, and I have the note that says I can use my own. That doesn't always work at hospitals, but we do have a cheat sheet that says work with your physicians and your surgeons before you have to go through surgery and say, this is what I need. Don't remove my devices unless you have to, unless I need an MRI or you need to get to that location. Don't touch it. And if you take it off, don't throw it away. There's all this extra stuff that we need to let them know. Yes, I tell people, bring your own insulin, bring your own glucose. And I've been told, but people said, oh, I'll just get juice. No, your nurses are going to be busy. They may not have juice on the floor that day. Don't depend on the hospital to give you, just stick it in your go bag. They don't have to know what's in your go bag. And so I always say, bring syringes, insulin, glucose. I bring glucagon. Don't tell me I can't have my stuff. Now, whether I tell them I use it or not, that's another discussion. But if I can't get what I need, I'm going to get what I need from my go bag.
And the other is, if you're not able to control, as in anesthesia, do take the time to talk to the anesthesiologist. The anesthesiologist is the one that says yes or no to everything when you are under. So the doctor can say whatever they want, but the anesthesiologist is the one that's responsible for it. So make sure you don't leave that person out of the loop if you're going to plan any kind of procedure or do anything. And it's in the
Sometimes that's
checklist that
really
Joanne
hard
has
to-
posted too.
Yeah, sometimes that's very hard to do. In all my surgeries, I have not spoken to the anesthesiologist until the morning of. I always say, they say they'll call you the night before, they don't.
Yeah.
So don't expect to talk to them, but you can make a real big plan that when you do see them in the morning or before surgery,
Have
you
your
have
list.
a list.
Yeah.
Your
Yeah.
list to say this, here's my phone, or here's my controller, here's what I do, here's what I've done to my basal rate. Communicate with them. Yeah, absolutely.
And I know Ray has a question. So go ahead, Ray. You're on mute, so make sure to come off mute. You're still on mute. Do you need here? Maybe I can help you.
Yeah,
There you go.
all right, okay. I don't need to paint a dark picture, but I'm 77. My wife is several years older than me. We don't have family, we don't have kids. So I kind of feel, and so I've been thinking about what to do and I have a lot of other some physical issues too. So, and this probably isn't like legal to talk about, but if you really want to end things, and there's probably not a sheet on your website, but I would appreciate some information of where to look or to know there's something that, worst case scenario, what can I do?
One of the things I've been pushing for, but not successfully, quite honestly, but nursing schools. And we have someone on the call who's just recently graduated from nursing school. How do we interact with student nurses who might be able to help us? Diabetes educators, there's got to be a registry of retired diabetes educators. There's got to be one. I keep asking, and who might be willing to take a day a week and get a little extra pay and work through a doctor's office if they need to do it for billing. But there's got to be a way to extend the care that we need with the expertise that we need. Your question's perfect.
Thank you.
We're not prepared for this. We are not prepared. So I also don't have my own children. I have a stepdaughter who says, I'll do whatever you want, but you don't rely on that. So you don't know. And who is the question? Who will be there? How do I develop that? Community sometimes helps, but I really think it's the professionals who may have the ability to add to their tools and tricks that they can provide care. It's an important issue. It's a very important issue.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, and I also belong to a seniors group, and most of the people are older than I am, and they're not with diabetics, and nobody else knows about diabetes. Unfortunately, it's like diabetes. So it's hard, and but the suggestions of like student nurses or retired diabetes educators is a going, but again, you're going to need to be able to somehow find these people, maybe through the doctor's office, but
Another neglected resource on what you're talking about is hospice. The hospices will talk with you about this before it's time to be in a hospice. They are very, very, very receptive to helping people understand and talk about the process before years before. I have run into 2 hospice groups, and all of them said, call us, and because we've had discussions about the diabetes, and call us before, and we can talk with you about what might be able to do and might be able to help you with. It sounds like a really weird thing to say, call a hospice when you're not going into hospice, but it is a really good resource, and the people that are involved with that are really, really attentive to feeling where you are and where you have to go through.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, everybody. It's scary.
So there's also from the village, because villages for older people, a lot of speakers and workshops on end of life choices of conscious dying, of making the decision. And I have the information, not in my head, but on paper, of this organization that has information that will talk explain things. And it's not called conscious suicide anymore. That seems really a horrible name. There's a better name, and there's information for us to be able to hold the information and not have to make a decision. I can find it and give it to Jen, and then it can be put in the chat for anybody. The more information we have more knowledge, more choices, more grounding.
There is a question in the chat from Katie in regards to working with her endo provider with having a lot of different profiles and doctors seem more worried about her going low rather than tight control. Katie, maybe you want to.
Yeah, my question is like, I have very limited guidelines written. I got to do that. But if I wrote out what I do and what I would prefer somebody else to do, I suspect they'll read the first 3 sentences and dismiss it. So how do I make, right? Because it's like, this is too much. I can't do this crap. So how do I make it as effective as possible? And is there a place where I could submit something and say, hey, if you got this, would you do it? And how could I make it more likely?
A couple of things. You've got a bunch of things in there. First of all, as we age, our needs are going to change, and your care. There's a discussion in the medical community of lightening up on your control, because lows are harder and more damaging and more dangerous. That's a hot topic right now of how much do they, there's another word for it, they kind of, they demedicate you basically, or they give you less and less. And that's a topic for discussion. I'll know a little bit more about this by the end of October, because there's a workshop on this. But what I have in personal medical resume files, which are editable, you can do your own, print them up, have your own description of how you take care of yourself. And you can fill it in, say what you currently have. The best you can do is talk to them. You do not have to read it, you're right. I have this little binder that if I'm in the hospital, sits on the nightstand at the hospital, and it says, read this in big red. Do they read it? No, but it's there. And if my husband or somebody there can point to it and say there. I also, when I go to the hospital, I put on a wristband that says type 1 diabetes. During COVID, I talked to the local hospital and said, could you put this on every T1D that comes into your hospital, gets admitted? Just put it on, like allergic to penicillin, type 1 diabetes. And they said it would take 5 years to get through compliance to put on paper wristbands. So for $75, I bought 500. And I'll give them to whoever wants them. And every time I've gone to the hospital, I slap it on in pre-op. And the last time I was at the hospital, I said, I'm just going to put this on now. Is that okay with you? And she said, you don't need that. We understand. And then she said, okay, so you have type 1 diabetes. Do you need insulin? And I said, I'm putting this on right now. Okay. And anytime anyone would walk in the room, I would show it to them, because we have to anchor that it's type 1. It is not type 2. It is not anything else but type 1. It's important. So any way you can signal whoever's going to take care of you, this is what I take. This is what happens when I have low blood sugar. This is what I need. And when I tell you I need insulin, listen to me. That's the best voice, or your advocate, to say, she knows what she needs, listen to her.
Joanne, I do have a quick question. I'm going to utilize my hosting privileges. Have you ever heard anything about Dexcom not working with cauterization machines? I've been told that if you are having a surgery with cauterization, you cannot have your Dexcom will stop. giving accurate information.
I just had
It's
shoulder replacement. We had that whole discussion because they were cauterizing because it was a mess. And
it,
to Dexcom, it's not an issue. It was not an issue for me.
Awesome. So it stayed
no, but
accurate.
it also, it's the Bluetooth communication is where the issue is at. So depending on the environment in the procedure, they may be using Bluetooth, and that was where you may run into the issue.
Oh, so okay, so if the cauterization machines or some other machine has Bluetooth technology in it, then
It could
Bluetooth,
block it, but it
yeah,
should reconnect. But I
yeah,
don't know that. But it
yeah.
should. It comes back when you've lost connection. Very often it'll come back.
yeah.
But I wouldn't swear by that.
Okay, I'll let you know.
Unfortunately, Bluetooth is not a fixed connection. It's a connection that is turned off and turned on and turned off and turned.
Yeah.
And remember with Dexcom is off. It's not using Bluetooth until the 5 minutes comes up. It turns on
And
for
then it
like
pings.
20 milliseconds, then turns off again. That's why it can reconnect. But normally it's not. I'm not saying it can't get messed up. I mean, Steve and I have had long conversations about that, but Dexcom only is communicating for a very short burp every 5 minutes. That's good.
And that's why you have the conversation with your surgeon, your anesthesiologist, anybody in the hospital that needs to know that will be in the OR that knows what technology they're using. Just don't accept, take it off. Don't
Okay.
let them tell you that until you understand why and what the consequences are.
When I was having surgery last year, I was wearing Omnipod and the Dexcom. I put it in manual mode instead of having it correct for me. But I was able to have an endocrinologist there. And when they give you glucose to prevent nausea. And when they did that, the endocrinologist gave me some insulin just through the IV, and I came out, never went above 200. So you can't always get an endocrinologist there, but I was fortunate that I was able to make those arrangements.
It's helpful when you talk to the anesthesiologist before the surgery, saying, I'm running my pump at a reduced rate, but you have control. If you need to add insulin, go ahead, understand this is all running, and just explain it to them. They're becoming more and more knowledgeable. Every anesthesiologist that I've had in the last 5 years takes my cell phone and puts it in his pocket and has access to it the whole time. So it's communications there as best as possible. That's all you can do.
When I had my surgeries, I showed my pump. This is how you put it in suspend. This is how you give me a little bolus. Here's my blood sugar. If you leave me alone, I promise that my basal rates will keep me steady. If you don't have to use glucose in the IV, thank you very much. That won't be it. That won't affect my blood sugar. And that has worked out really well. Just a really quick, clear, this is how you use my tools. And just a quick mention on the to-go bag. I have a emergency everyday go bag. I've got some Lumjev in a syringe. I've got some glucose tablets in a little Ziploc. I have a new infusion set. And those are the things I take with me when I leave the house. You talk about leaving it at the front door. That's my everyday. And then I have not quite a Jack go bag, but I do have a go bag.
I think a daily go bag is really valuable. I have one as well, and it has exactly what you said in it. And someone in the open source community who's actually running my group now, her husband's the T1D. They had to drive someplace for 3 hours, did not bring anything with them. His pump failed and his CGM was not getting data. And it was 6 hours of catching up later. And I said, how did you get caught that way? How you know this? And she just hung her head down and said, yeah, I did. So you all have heard this now. It's, you don't have to, but it sure takes away a whole lot of stress. You already have stress dealing with diabetes. Why add to it? Just get a little kit, go to Target, get something cute, just carry it with you. Your insulin doesn't need to be refrigerated all the time, so you're okay with that. You can throw a Freza in there. Just don't get caught without, because that's just more stress. We just don't need more stress.
Go
Just
ahead, Reva.
Thanks. And by the way, Joanne, congratulations. Big
Thanks, Reva.
congratulations. Just last night, you just mentioned, this, 53 years. I always have glucose tabs in my pouch, my knapsacks, every time I'm going out of the house and carrying. And just last night, I was going to the ballet at Lincoln Center. And I decided not to take a bag because I couldn't decide what bag to take. So I was going to wear my travel pants and load up my pockets with what I needed. My credit card, my phone, my keys, and my insulin and syringe. And what did I forget? Glucose tablets. And I'm looking at my CGM on the subway, and I'm 75. And I started to quietly freak out. And I thought, this is crazy, In a way, my life is on the line because I forgot my glucose tablets. So as soon as I got out of the subway, luckily in New York City, I walked 2 blocks, I passed a bakery. They sell coffee. I go in, I steal sugar packets.
Okay, so here's Barbie in her purse or glucose tablets, okay? And a CGM. So she carries it in her purse.
But it's, you can always forget. And if we're going to talk about getting older, you can always forget more.
Hang it on your keys. Yeah, put it on your keys. Make it as foolproof as possible because we will forget, and we are overwhelmed in this world. We're overwhelmed and we forget things. Forget the aging part. We're overwhelmed. So make it as foolproof as possible because you don't want to feel on the subway going, oh my goodness.
And don't forget the other people who are there. See a mom with a kidlet and say, do you happen to have some candy or a package of raisins?
Yeah.
I have done that before.
I have too.
Yes. With my daughter, I've been at a parking lot and people are opening up their trunk and it's amazing what people have. Yeah. Jack, I will not be doing you proud by saying this, but I kind of my to-go bag, when I pick up Juliet's prescriptions, I just put it, they're all now hanging in a bag that's hanging off a hook. And so all the prescriptions are already in a bag. And so if anything ever happened, I could just grab that bag, grab some insulin, leave the house. And that's now just where I'm storing all her prescriptions.
Here's another suggestion, and there's a cheat sheet available for that as well. A list of your medications would be really cool. You can leave it on your phone. But you also, if you're going to be in the hospital, want to let them know when you take these medications, what they need to be taken with, and whether they're essential or not, whether they're more supplemental and you could skip it. I have a calcium problem. The hospital said, oh, that's a supplement. We'll take her off of that. And I got into a ditch with low calcium. And my husband said, it's on her list. And they said, well, we didn't think it was important. So make a list of what's important and say critical or essential or could be skipped. That way the pharmacy and the nutritionist can deal with that a little bit better. It's just helping them help you. There's a lot of information here today. I'm sure we're overwhelming you, but it's really good to be aware of this. Yeah, Ellen.
So that comes back to looking over Joanne's information at T1D to 100. Little things will go, oh, gosh, I could do that. or I could at least start thinking about that. And with your insulin, like Joanne said, it does not need to be refrigerated. What if you had one vial with a syringe in your to-go bag, and every time you need a new bottle, you trade. You take the one out of your go bag, put a new one from the fridge in your to-go bag. So you always have a fresh bottle.
Look, everyone on this call is really an excellent manager. Seriously, this disease requires huge amounts of management and organization. So kudos, everyone does this. This is another little layer that makes it a little bit easier and one less thing you have to worry about.
Can I add something when I'm on speaker?
Yeah.
I would like to add how this talk started out. I tuned in late, but I am 75. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
I'm 75, and earlier this year in January, I had a fall due to blood pressure and fractured my spine. But this was an event, and I have one daughter, and this is an event where I needed care. And since that time, and even before, we started kind of looking at the retirement centers for me. I live alone and just thinking about, hey, yeah, it's about time to start looking. So I start looking at the difference between profit and not-for-profit centers. And I decided not for profit is the way I want to go. And it's not just a hop, skip, and a jump to get into these places. You got to learn, you got to do, can you hear me still?
Yes.
You do a lot of paperwork, and they want to know like every single hair on your head to get into these places. And a lot of times there's waiting lists.
And there
So if
are,
you're about
by the
thinking
way,
about,
there are surcharges if you have type 1 diabetes. So always ask about the fees because they either won't take you or they may charge you more. So there,
as of what I've searched for so far, nobody has, so far I haven't run into like, hey, honey buns, no way, Jose. It's like, oh yeah, okay. But tomorrow I actually has my first nursing appointment with a nurse. So, but even after I have the nursing appointment, she's not going to say anything. I'm just like, it's just like a meet and greet
in
appointment.
many states, there's a form that a doctor can fill out that
He
will
already has.
specify your care,
For this-
and that really helps walking into a facility, is having that in hand before you walk
For
into
this
the
place,
facility.
the place where I'm going tomorrow, all of that paperwork has been already done. And that was a headache for me to start to fill out. And my doc has already got all that stuff filled out and is there. So that is a lot of work to get done for one place, only one. If you're thinking about looking at other places. So that was just
you
I
bring up
wanted
an
to say.
interesting topic of falls. As we get older, everyone tends to have a little more difficulty with balance. And
about my fall, I was taking a pill to prevent kidney disease, which also was a pill that's for blood pressure. And I had been taking it for years, and it was garbage day, and I just bent over too far, and when I stood up, my blood pressure just crashed, and I went backwards and fractured some lumbar.
Well, medications, we also absorb them differently as we age, and that's an issue that should be reviewed by your doctors as you age. But what I was going to mention is slow down, just slow down. You'll get there, but we're used to going. And again, all of you are competent managers. You're good at life. You're resilient. You go. Well, as we age, maybe you go a little slower, or you take a breath. You don't pop up as fast because you don't want to go down as fast, basically. So it's just a reminder in your head, slow down a little bit. You want to prevent falls. Balance becomes an issue with type 1s. It's a significant issue. So we know that. So we just need to be a little more mindful. And very often I'll get up and go, and my husband will say, slow down. And it's a little annoying, but it's accurate. So see if you can be aware of that because you don't want to fall as much
I'll
as
just,
yeah.
yeah. I would add to look at the ground when you're walking, because I fractured my elbow, and irregular pavement can pop up everywhere. So don't be looking at the person you're walking with. Look at the ground always. I want to say too to Joanne, this is really a phenomenal accomplishment.
Yes.
What you've done is amazing here, and kudos.
Thank
really.
you.
for that.
On the walking thing, don't wear your bifocals when you're walking. There's a real issue with the ability to shift for where your correction range is, and bifocals are a major cause of falls. So just be aware if you pop up, you have your reading glasses on, and you're going to go get a drink of water, maybe take your glasses off, or be aware, slow down a little bit. Yeah.
I know we think of ourselves as getting older, that we're less strong, and we probably are. But a couple of things, and one of my specialties is menopause for type 1, which is, there's 50 million women in this country over age 50 who all are headed toward where we're going. Most of them don't have type 1. But the strength exercises, you tend to think of those for young people, and that isn't actually true at all. The new sort of approach to this, and even the clinical research, shows that women over 50 who do strength training, it doesn't say that they didn't fall less, but they have reversed or improved osteoporosis, which sometimes you do fall for different reasons, glasses, medications, whatever, looking in the wrong place. But your chance of fracture is really the key, because for 1 out of 2 women in this country over age 65 will fracture. And those are women without type 1 diabetes. If you have type 1, your risk is about 10 times greater. So I actually, if you guys are anybody's interested, I can tell you about it. It costs some money to start, but I went through the official clinical trial, which they've licensed the protocol to a commercial product. And I went through that, and I paid so that I could teach my friends how to do it. I started about 3 months ago. So just putting this out there, that even though you think you're older, and certainly you are slowing down and being less strong, it might be possible to put some padding in there for you, or even stop, slow down, or even reverse some of the decline, because there is clinical research for this. The research is more strongly, the recent one is in women, but I've found some 2009, actually, she started writing on, it was senior Olympians, they were men and women, showing that the Olympians that did exercise, or the sport that used heavy, strenuous, or muscle strength as opposed to less, have way less fractures. And these were all over 65.
Is this a protocol that you?
Yep. So the trial, it's called LIFTMOR, LIFTMOR. I can share my screen. I have it on, but anyway, and they've licensed that, and they call it something else now, but it is that exact protocol. It was done by a group in Australia. And it shows that you can reverse early osteoporosis, and you can reduce your score on full-blown osteoporosis. And one of the girls in they do a group after you learn how for 4 times, and you go to the group every week. And she had like 40% reduction in osteoporosis after a year. And these are women, the trial, they were not taking hormones, and they were not taking bone building drugs, which is amazing that just weightlifting alone was enough to do that for women. So if you guys are interested, I can, here, I'll just type my name in the chat.
I think we should have you come on and do a Zoom lift session with us, Jessica.
Sure, I'd be glad to. Because like I said, I paid, it's about $2,000 to start the program, but I wanted to find out like exactly how they do it. And of course, they focus on safety, because all of us already have either early osteoporosis or full blown. So they teach you how to do it, and I can show you how. And you just keep, doing it until you reach the next level. And I hope to break 100 pounds lifting this year.
Yeah,
my
I just
God.
went to 90 and I actually made a mistake at the gym on Saturday. I counted wrong and I did 110, so I know I can do it. But
Is there
I'd be
anything that
glad.
they do it for also hand strength?
Yeah, actually grip strength is part of it.
Okay.
So believe it or not, you just hold onto a pole or something steady and you just hold on and you hang. Like you take your foot, or go on a stool and just lift and do that. So the physical therapist, so I go through this program and they actually have physical therapists supervising, so it's very controlled. But he told me to do that because when I did my accidental 110-pound, he asked how my
Yeah,
grip strength was, and I said it's not as good. So he said, yeah, you should practice.
you can go ahead and have lunch. Yeah, but
Oh, I think she muted. Anyway, I put my name in the chat if you want to contact me. And Jen, I'm glad to give you an overview of the science behind it, some of the real results, both from the trial and even the women in my group. We were just like, we had this party that day that she got her new DEXA scan. And I have some suggestions also for T1D and women over 50 because we have special needs. The biggest risk you have, that's greater than all the other girls is not actually heart, it's actually osteoporosis. So you do have greater heart risk, even though, most people, that's what's the most common killer. But the thing will be falling and fracturing.
Could you write that up and we can also post it? So
Yeah, I'd be glad to. Yeah, I mean, I've been doing this. I have like
that'd be great.
Hundreds of hours of research and lots of, but it's you'll see a little bit on social media, but it is real and I think it works. And the side bonus is just by doing that lifting, I feel stronger, a lot stronger. I went to weightlifting class this morning, just a regular one, and it was too easy for me.
And Jessica, make sure to look in the chat. There's a lot of people that want to connect with you on your research with menopause.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. That's so exciting. I think we're gonna have to do a weight session, guys.
Yeah, and it is something that you can do. And so if you combine it with hormones, or like if you have a really bad score, if your score is -4, it's basically imminent fracture. You this one girl actually in my program, her score is -4.2, which is clinically considered imminent fracture. So she did the weightlifting for a year and she actually did one of the bone building drugs, and she's the one that got the 40%. So depending on where you are, and there's like different considerations, especially as you get older, for even hormones, you can take them past the 10-year window with certain consideration. But it's just a really optimistic, bright spot for us, I think.
I want to say thank you. And now I'm going to go join my sons at the gym. They're all bodybuilders. I'll embarrass them when I go with them. Thank you.
That's community. It's information, it's encouragement, a little bit of joys. Thank you for sharing those happy messages, Jessica. That's what we all need. We need to feel positive that there's something we can do. So go get your weights.
Drop the link to the chat or to the study, the Australian study, and the discussion in there. It is interesting. That's exciting, Jessica.
Yeah, it's 7 years ago actually. And it was specifically for women because we lose estrogen. So we just lose the hormone that protects our entire body, including our bones. But it is, I did see a study in 2009. Vonda Wright did her study almost 10 years before and showed that in seniors, both men and women, the heavy weight bearing. So I don't mean 5 and 10 pounds. When I started doing my deadlifts, I think I was doing around 50 or 60. And now I'm at around 90, but it is on the heavier side. And this is why they focus on the form, and they really it's actually only 3 things: overheads, it's deadlifts and squats, and then you just do some jumping. That's it. And that was the 4 exercises in the clinical trial. Let me see if I can pull the study quickly enough to put it in the chat, but you can also reach out to me.
The link to whatever the exercise.
Yeah, they don't exactly tell you that because it's a trial, right? And then what they did was they took the trial protocol and they licensed it to physical therapy centers. So they're basically, physical therapists are clinicians and they understand bones and they understand exercise. And you go in there for 4 visits and they show you how to do the stuff. And then afterwards you join the group. But It's expensive, and it's not that scalable in my opinion. I mean, I would love to kind of have a self, formulated. I mean, I would love for like 24-hour fitness to be involved in this because that's where I go. I just go to like $25 a month gym and I do all this stuff.
Yeah.
And it's totally possible. Yeah.
Do
So,
they address any issues of arthritis, which also occurs frequently with T1D? So
yeah.
lifting can hurt the joint.
Yes.
So do they address how you?
Yes.
Okay, that's great.
So just in the physical therapy gym that I go to, it's a physical therapy office that has, stuff. All the ladies are osteoporosis. So we all have problems. We have neck, shoulder, back. So they do have stuff that you can do to compensate. But sometimes you just have to use something different. And other times you just have to lift less until you can build up. I'm, frozen shoulders. I have 2 frozen shoulders, and one is enough that I have a hard time holding the bar squatting. So I decided I'm going to fix that so that I can do the regular squats. I don't have to use special equipment. But yeah, even hand grip, especially
Well,
for T1s, but all women that as you age, you tend to have that. So they do have different things that you can do. Yes.
okay. By the way, because of grip strength, and this is a topic that comes up as well, and particularly if you're using a Dexcom G7, the container is sometimes very, very hard to open. And I've had people call me saying they had to go to their neighbors to get it open. A rubber band works. There are lots of little rubbery things that help you open things. I can't open bottles of water anymore. I don't have that grip strength. So at ADCES, they gave people little grippy things. Those are nice things to throw in your purse if you need them. But definitely the Dexcom G7 thing is sometimes real hard to open.
I know we took up a lot of Joanne's time today. Does anyone have any last questions? We're like half hour over the session. Jack,
Yeah, hi.
Oh, and Karen. Go ahead, Karen.
This is my first time joining this particular group. So I'm a friend of Reva Greenberg's, and I want to thank her for reminding me about this. I had been very, very active for about 20 years with Diabetes Sisters. And the main premise originally about that was support groups. And I ran support groups in person for many years. And then of course, COVID came and now everything is virtual. And I eventually burned out on leading virtual. So what I'm enjoy. So first of all, Diabetes Sisters has lots of information about how to run support groups, because we had lots of training and there was lots of challenges because it's a T1 and T2. So there was, you had to manage that dichotomy in the groups, but it was all women. It is all women. They still run Zoom meetings. So, but they have a lot of knowledge about how to train facilitators and set up support groups and how to run them.
Thank you. Yeah, we have them listed as a resource, but I didn't know that part of it. So we'll point that out.
Yeah, that was a major part of it. That was wonderful. I learned so much from them. And but this is really nice to be in a group of older people, because when you're in a mixed group or you have younger girls and they're all talking about pregnancy and you just check out and they're not really interested in menopause. And so this is very interesting that we can move into territory that has not really been explored before, which is pretty scary. And look at all these things that we just shared about. So I signed up for the T1D to 100 group. So now I'll get your messages or whatever newsletters you're gonna send out. So so that's exciting. Thanks for what you're doing.
Thank you.
I have a similar thing just to jump in.
Tan, I think you're not coming through well.
We've been kind of pulling together some support groups locally. I'm in the Pacific through NorCal. Okay, I'm going to turn off my video to see. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, it's better, I think.
Okay. I would love to brainstorm networking and like how we can build some of these networks. I've been holding events where we have parents and adults and kids. My partner loves Lego and has the kids set up with that. And then we do like little mini slide presentations. And I just think that there's a lot. We all care so much about each other, even having never met. And I would love to brainstorm ways to start building some local networks so that we can connect the babysitters and the parents and the younger type ones with the older type ones who might be needing even just a site change, those kinds of things. So
I love that. I think there's a lot of cross community opportunities. Absolutely.
Well, you know, jumping off that thought, Joanne, I had thought earlier, although I know T1D to 100, of course, is meant for us gray hairs who are, you know, getting into those upper years, and all that we need to know and understand to be prepared to live those latter years with quality. I don't know if it would work on your site, but it's something to think about, which is the point just raised, this idea of mentorship, that those of us who have had this for a very long time might be a resource for young people who don't know what we know, right? There's such collective wisdom here when you've had this a long time. And I don't know if that's of any interest to you at all, but you know, maybe that could be an offering.
It's interesting. Some of the people that join who answer the question, the membership questions, some of them are moms of teenage kids. And I'm wondering why they join. And they said, I want to know what the future is. I want to understand, prepare, and contribute. So you're right. There are a few people that have been talking about mentorship. And maybe we can get that organized as well.
Well, I know I find a ton of value with this community, and I'm a parent of a teenager. So I always tell a lot of parents I speak with to come join this call. I'm like, look, you're not an adult with type 1, but I think what they have to say will resonate, and especially put things in a better perspective. You know, you guys have lived for over 50 plus years, some of you with type 1. You were diagnosed when you were getting your blood sugar reading taken once a week in the doctor's office, as Jack explained, and getting those results 24 hours later, and that was the blood sugar reading for the whole entire week. And we get, you know, us as parents, we've all, you know, gotten diagnosed with the Dexcom, and we get a reading every 5 minutes. And it can make you neurotic, right? And it can put you in a very bad relationship with your child. Because you're going to be nagging and you don't have control. And I think coming out here has helped me, and I've sent other parents out here to hear from you guys in the community to kind of put things back in perspective. Yeah, there's a lot of value with this group.
I was going to touch on what Reba said, but first I wanted to touch on that too. I have a lot of opinions, sorry, but
really?
When I was a child, I was brought to Joslin Clinic. It wasn't Joslin, it was Deaconess. It was in 1955. And the doctors told my parents, it's her disease, not yours. And that was at 7, they had me doing my own injections. So I think that's something I with the new technology, and I see people, you know, parents hovering, and I try to tell them they're not going to be with you forever. You got to let them have roots and wings. But on what Reba was saying, last year I was invited to go to an alumni weekend for a camp I went to as a kid. And I was the longest term person with the longest term of diabetes there. And there were a couple other women that may have been at the camp the same time as me, but it was fun. I was hanging out with 30, 40, 50-year-olds, and it was really a lot of fun. So I think, there are camps that people have alumni, and maybe that could be something to coordinate. I think it's really important to share and, that kind of thing. So just throwing it out there.
Breakthrough T1D in New York City used to have a mentoring program, actually formal mentoring program. And
Yeah.
it was really powerful because it wasn't just that, I was sort of the old goat watching over this family who was just newly diagnosed, but it was also really kind of really reinforcing for me because I was like, whoa, it's on both ends that it's phenomenally satisfying. So I love the idea. I think Reva, I think we should start one.
And
in
I
New
think
York.
you need to, Maddie, I'm going to just mention this, and you didn't hear this from me, but Breakthrough T1D has changed its mentoring program. It is not as impactful as it once was, Maddie, and it's something I've been fighting about with National for a very long time. So yes, I think there would be a lot of value in us being able to point to a mentoring program, because the one we have right now just isn't quite the same.
Yeah. Let's do it. Let's do it. It's interesting. Just as a side note, there's a hospital in Singapore that's very innovative, to the point where they made sure that every patient bed, when they look out the window, sees greenery. It's really extraordinary what the CEO there did. And one of the programs they have in their diabetes unit is they take on a patient for a year, and after that patient is fairly well educated, if they want, they become a mentor for new patients who are coming through. Now that's done at a hospital. It's like there's so much we could be doing if we just, blow open the borders of our head.
And when I developed the co-op living model that I'm going to eventually live in, I don't want it to just to be people my age. I really want it to be younger people and, a whole cross section.
Yeah, keep you healthier.
Yep.
Well, it looks like we are definitely way over the time. Joanne and Jeannie and Jessica, a huge thank you for coming out here. Jessica, well, maybe we do an offshoot session on women and T1D with your deck. I think that would be a great session for us to offer. We do have one more e-meet and greet this calendar year, October 30th, I think it is, October 29th. And then our next two e-meet and greets sadly fall over Thanksgiving and Christmas. So our October 29th will be an open session, but Jessica, maybe somewhere in between there and Christmas, we can do one off cycle. Yeah, the winter holidays and the Thanksgiving holidays are messing with our event. So, but thank you very much for coming and sharing. This was such an insightful conversation. And Joanne, I am not, I will be one of those parents of teens that will be joining your T1D to 100 group. Thank you again. And we'll share this recording out for everyone. And thanks for joining.
Thanks, Joanne.
Thank you.
Bye, all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. This is great.
Bye.
Thank you.